And welcome back to Hannity. Now, last week, the Twitter account associated with the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for African Americans tweeted out a link to a Huffington Post article from August titled, quote, 5 ways to teach about Michael Brown and Ferguson in the new school year. Among the suggestions is for them to, quote, create a classroom memorial. Here with reaction, former LAPD Detective Mark Furman, former NYPD Detective Bo Dietl. Mark, wait a minute. So a guy that maybe was potentially trying to kill a cop gets a memorial, and that's not a rush to judgment along with the 3 White House representatives that were sent to the funeral?
Well, this whole thing is outrageous. You don't involve children, especially when you're projecting a role model. It'd be better to go to death row and find somebody for a role model. Michael Brown is not a role model. He was a violent thug that already committed a strong-arm robbery that attacked an officer. Those are the facts. And Al Sharpton and all the dream weavers can do anything they want. It's not going to change the facts. If that's the poster child for a movement, then they don't have any ammunition. They don't have anything to really say that is worthwhile, especially in the school.
All right, but doesn't this teach, Bo, the president rushed to judgment? The White House said they don't even send 3 White House representatives to the funerals of soldiers or the families that lost people that were beheaded by ISIS.
Or the 100 cops that were killed
or last year,
right?
Or the 45,000 that were injured.
Right, but my problem with this thing is the kids in the classroom now, they're really putting as a semblance. They're waking up the zombies. Yeah, I'm surprised. Where the hell is Jesse Jackson? He hasn't been heard from. He'll be popping up next. Farrakhan. Now you got the National Action Network. It's got more fundraising going on right now. As they're doing this every day. Now you got to have kids in the school believe there was substance to this Michael Brown thing.
Yeah.
There is no substance to it. And a president that's doing this and dividing this country like that, he ought to look in the mirror. That's a shame, Mr. Obama. That's a shame you're doing to this country.
Should the stepfather who said burn this down, should he be arrested and tried for inciting a riot? And should Louis Farrakhan saying we'll tear this GD country up?
He should be arrested, and every one of these punks here in New York stopping the roads, people going home from work wanting to have their dinner, 2.5 hours on the road, and they let them shut these roads down. Shame on New York City for letting them do that. We have rights, too. The people going home working hard all day, where in the hell are their rights? Yeah. When they're stopped, they can't get in their cars and go home.
Is that inciting a riot? What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. It's inciting a riot. And not only that, the First Amendment does not allow you to stop commerce, public movement, access to buildings. The First Amendment doesn't have anything to do with rocks, bottles, turning over police cars, burning buildings, burglarizing, vandalizing. These people are nothing but criminals, and they're talking about spending $500 million to educate police officers. Let's educate the community that can't seem to keep themselves straight.
Well, it seems to me that this is pretty transparent. They're going to have some tough decisions because there's a lot of politics here, and I'm sure there's a school of thought that says, oh, don't touch this. Now, the St. Louis Rams did this whole thing. They come out on the field, you know, hands up, don't shoot, okay? Here's a problem with their narrative. Michael Brown's hands weren't up. According to eyewitnesses, he was charging Officer Wilson like a football player with his head down.
But now you have kids that are watching a football game in the stadium all around. They see this. They think there's some validity to what was said. This is a lie.
Where's Roger Goodell on this?
Well, now all of a sudden he should come out with the NFL and fine him. Fine him for doing that. They can't celebrate at the end zone. They fine him. Well, let's fine him for this. That's garbage. If that did happen that way, that's something else. The facts do not concur with this.
This is one of the problems, Mark. Bo has read the evidence. I've read the evidence. You've read the evidence that the grand jury, and I'm glad that they let it out. You read the evidence, and it's so overwhelming. There was never going to be a guilty conviction here, ever. It probably, I agree with Rudy, in a normal instance, it wouldn't have even been brought before a grand jury. But that's not the way people played it. Go ahead.
No, it isn't, Sean. But let me just kind of go beyond what you said. If a prosecutor in any city in America would have looked at this, they would have said there's not enough evidence to present it to a grand jury and there's no indictment. And if he did charge the officer and he went to trial, once the prosecution got done presenting their case, there would be a motion to dismiss because they have not proved the prima facie case, and it wouldn't even go to the defense case. It'd be gone.
And I guarantee you that nobody from the St. Louis Rams read the evidence in this case. Because if they did, I'd have a hard time believing that anyone could come to any other conclusion except the eyewitnesses corroborating Officer Wilson's story.
Well, you know, Sean, maybe football players should understand what their lot in life is. They're playing a game. So stick with that. Leave law enforcement and the legal stuff to people that actually know what they're doing. Just keep it on the field and play your game.
You had one of the football players come on there. It was last week when he talked to the kids, the community, telling the kids about violence. That's what we should get from football players into our inner cities. Don't carry illegal guns and shoot little 5-year-old little girls, African-American, in the head. That's what they should be producing. They should be producing these commercials to let kids understand
there are
about
lessons
violence.
to learn here. The lesson is, don't rob a store, don't intimidate a clerk.
And don't carry illegal guns.
Don't shut a door on a police officer. Don't try and fight for his gun. And don't charge at him when he has his gun drawn. There's some lessons to learn here.
Look, as far as we learned when we heard it, his hands are up. He was surrendering. It's all baloney.
Yeah, last word. Go ahead, Mark.
Sean, you know, when you listen to all the narrative that's been going on for weeks now, you would think that everybody in the community in Ferguson basically is in a choir, and the police just come in there and start thumping, shooting, and beating and arresting them. There's no accountability for the conduct of anybody on the street that's been arrested before, during, or after this.
And the grand jury was formed a month before this happened. So you had no idea who was going to be in that grand jury.
All right, guys, thank you both. Appreciate it. And coming up tonight, Darren Wilson resigns from the Ferguson Police Department, but he will not receive a severance. Is that fair? He wasn't charged. We're going to hear from two of Wilson's attorneys. That's coming up next. Plus, it's the picture that everybody's talking about. Well, there's a cop hugging a little boy at a Ferguson protest in Portland with tears rolling down his eyes. That police officer in that photo will join us tonight. Straight ahead.